Welcome back to the Ewan Graf podcast powered by Cineman. Today, we're talking about Miss Marvel. Kamala is a superhero fan with an imagination, particularly when it comes to Captain Marvel. Kamala feels like she doesn't fit in at school and sometimes even at home. That is until she gets superpowers like the heroes she's looked up to. So, Miss Marvel is the latest of a total of 6 MCU shows that have premiered as part of Phase 4 of the MCU, and it's yet another 6-episode series. Now, Miss Marvel is quite something new for the MCU, at least when it comes to the faces on screen. We get a bunch of new characters, including the lead Iman Vellani, who basically has an on-screen debut with the Marvel show, and I gotta say, nails it totally and is my highlight of the show overall. I think she perfectly lives that teen spirit and then the healthy dose of that coming of age spirit that you would want from your lead. So Miss Marvel is basically the origin story of the titular character, but also goes lengths to set up a bunch of different things for the MCU, kind of on the outskirts of it to tie it into the grander narrative. But basically, this is one of those origin stories that we used to get earlier on for some of the eventual Avengers members, with Iron Man, with a Captain America, with a Thor. But now we get it in this form of a 1-season series that spans the length of roughly 2.5 to 3 hours. So it's basically a bit of an extended film broken apart into 6 separate bits. What you make of that, I guess, is to each their own, but I would prefer just a long form, maybe a longer movie instead of these episodically cut bits that don't really feel like they really need that episodic feel to them. But nonetheless, I mean, once it's up on Disney Plus and it's streaming, you can all binge it in one go, and it's basically that same cinematic experience regardless. Now, the story of Miss Marvel is nothing that is super out of the ordinary, with someone coming to terms with the new powers that they have been granted. But the unique new approach is, well, I guess the background for Kamala, who is Pakistani. So you get a limelight shone on people that usually don't really stand in the limelight as presently when it comes to comic books and films overall, at least when it's done by a Western production studio. So this was a nice, refreshing breath of fresh air whenever we get those cultural bits sprinkled in there, for people who might not have known about some of the historic bits that are woven into the story. I think that was kind of something that was done in a neat way to tie everything back together. I also enjoyed a lot of the family characters. They were well rounded and had quite a bit of depth, going beyond the stereotypical tropes you have for family characters, but actually having small character arcs themselves. Now, that's something I can't really say about some of the romantic subplots, especially the one that involves someone abroad. I won't go into in this review about any spoilers, but I just had the impression that some of the bits could have been cut there, and we focused a bit more on some of the side characters that got the short end of the stick, like Nakia, a Bruno, or a Kamran even. And then overall in the story, I think that after episode 3, this show definitely does have a bit of a quality drop. There's a scale back on also the visual vibrancy of the show, where it's not as much of that pop-up animations that basically emphasize feelings and just bring them to the forefront, but it's more than the typical MCU building towards a fight and, just kind of the stuff that we have gotten used to with the MCU. So by the end of it, by the end fight, by the end resolution, this really fits in nicely with the MCU lineup at large. But I think the show would have benefited from being a bit more of a standalone thing that doesn't need to tie into 7 different other things. Other than that, I think the show is something maybe a bit more for a younger Marvel audience that is now growing up with it, but I still had a lot of fun with it, especially because, like I said, the lead performance is very captivating and she's amazing. Hopefully she'll get more to do in upcoming MCU projects. And I'll leave you with my rating before I quickly give you my thoughts on some of the spoiler stuff and the post-credit scenes. But I arrive at a 6 out of 10 for Miss Marvel. Certainly one of the better shows coming out of the Disney Plus Phase 4 Marvel serialization era. And then let's get into the post-credit scenes, which are basically just two setups. One being with Brie Larson as Captain Marvel coming in to set up the Marvels, and then the second one being the tie-in with Bruno giving her the information that, oh, in her genes, there's some form of a mutation. So that ties her to the X-Men, or she's at least a mutant. I'm not entirely sure if outside of the X-Men cameo in Multiverse of Madness, if there was anything else that confirmed the X-Men in this universe. But outside of that, I guess this is a confirmation that they are coming, which we already knew, but I guess this is now canon. And yeah, I don't think this means anything for the character overall. It's basically just a tease for upcoming stuff. So like most things that have recently been with these post-credit scenes in the MCU, they're basically just a big tease that don't ultimately mean anything to the characters directly and maybe have a payoff later down the line. But that's my thoughts on Miss Marvel. Did you watch the show? Was it your favorite so far? Or if not, which one have you enjoyed? Now, if you don't want to miss more reviews from me throughout the week, then consider subscribing to the channel and leave a like if you can. Goes a long way and it's really appreciated. I also have a podcast. Each Monday, Lachlan and I break down the latest in film news and got some spoiler reviews for new movies. This week, we're taking a look at all the trailers and news that came out of Comic-Con. So go give that a listen. But that's it for me today. So thanks for watching and I'll see you soon.